What's going on, everybody? Leo here with the Bellingham Real Estate Company in Bellingham, Washington. And the few of you that may watch this probably live here and we know each other. So at any point, feel free to DM me, Instagram, whatever, all the different modes of communication, or just text or call. Any questions about the real estate market if you want to have a dialogue about it, because there are a lot of preconceived notions out there. There's a lot of fear-based marketing. There's a lot of clickbait marketing or clickbait videos out there. And so what we're aiming to do with this annual market report, and also we're doing them quarterly, so if you've seen those come out, I've done videos for those, but also if you'd like a copy, just let me know. Our whole purpose and our goal with these is to show you what's actually happening with the market from an economic perspective. It's to move our focus away from the easy clickbait Instagram reel where someone's just trying to get a bunch of views. I don't care if this gets a lot of views. What I care about is that the people that really care about this see what's actually happening with the real estate market and can make educated decisions, because this is what we watch. This is what economists watch. This is what is most important. And a lot of those clickbait videos that you're seeing out there are based on national stats or other areas where these variables could be dramatically different. Obviously, interest rates are not going to be dramatically different across the country, but inventory could be dramatically different in different areas. Home prices, median closed prices. There's all sorts of different elements that play into this. So I just wanted to be really clear that if I want national information, I'm looking at that, but I'm ultimately, because I don't sell real estate in Oregon or Idaho or wherever it is, I'm looking at what's happening here and not just getting attracted to one or two of the variables, but looking at each one of those things and seeing how extreme they are, and then seeing how they balance out against other variables that are important to analyze in the real estate market. So with all of that being said, if you have any myths you'd like me to debunk, happy to do that. I'm going to jump right into the information here. As we look at these some of these sheets for specific cities, for Whatcom County as a whole, they're going to show some numbers, and you're going to go, great, what does that mean in comparison to last year? What does that mean for my real estate investment? And I'm going to try to get into that for all of you that, maybe you live in Bellingham, maybe you live in Linden, Ferndale, Blaine, you might live in East County, you might live in Skagit County. So the whole point is that I want to really dive into each market and what it means. So 2024 report, we made it through the year. It was a wild year in real estate for a number of reasons. Interest rates stayed pretty high. Inventory stayed relatively low. And then one of the most important stats that I'm going to go through here is that our median closed sale, number of closed sales in Whatcom County, was down 31% from 2023. So pretty crazy to think that we had this, basically from 2019 through COVID, we had this huge sales volume, and people felt like that was the norm. And then we got into post-pandemic world, the dust settles, and the median number of closed homes has gone down 31%. That means there's 31% less homes selling than there was before. That doesn't necessarily mean that the market's going down. So I want to kind of get into that, into the nuances of that. What we like to say, it's not declining, it's decelerating, right? There's been a deceleration post-COVID, which just means that the market's appreciating at less than, if you've watched the last couple of videos, COVID for a couple of years there was appreciating at 20 to 22% a year in Bellingham, which was pretty nuts, and that's not normal. So over this last year, we've seen a 5.5% appreciation in a place like Bellingham. But that, for all of those people out there that are saying, well, if interest rates stay high, that should, and the inventory is low, that should inevitably lead to prices coming down. Prices are not going to come down. They're just going to decelerate. They're just decelerated from what they were before, which was an anomaly. So enough of me rambling on. If you disagree, I'd love to have a conversation with you and talk about some numbers and data here, because we love those. Let's talk about, at a glance, the overall stats for Whatcom County. Median closed price. And by the way, if you're getting information about average closed price, do not listen to that, because averages, as for those of you that aren't familiar with the difference between averages and medians, averages are going to take every single property, the lowest priced property and the exorbitantly expensive property, and they're going to average that out. And inevitably, those are going to be higher. What we want to look at is the median. Where's the meat of the data? The meat of the data is the most important thing, right? That's where the majority of the homes are selling. We don't want anything skewed by dramatically low-priced homes or, which I'm, what would those be? 300, whatever, condos, town. We want to make sure the data is pure. So looking at median close price in Whatcom County, $637,250. Looking at Bellingham, $717,750. So it's pretty well above the median closed sales price of other cities in Bellingham. You've got Linden right behind at $685, Ferndale at $640, Birch Bay and Blaine at $618. And we're going to get into some interesting stats about longevity, right? So you've got Blaine and Birch Bay, which is actually up the most of any of the cities in Whatcom County. But we're talking about the leaps from a lower price point to to 618 from a lower price point, whereas Bellingham has stayed relatively in that upper 6 to low 7s range with the median close price from month to month. So that's going to actually look like it's less, but it's also a larger price. Number of homes closed in Whatcom County, 2272. Bellingham 952, Blaine, Birch Bay 353, Ferndale 279, and Linden 208. So pretty interesting to look at these different cities and how many homes actually sold there. We might think that homes are selling like hotcakes everywhere, but when you really break that down, it's not. If you look at Linden, a place where there's a lot of new growth, 208. I mean, we're talking about 17, 18 a month. That's not that many if we're thinking the market's crazy hot. Year-over-year appreciation. This is the last piece that I think is going to be really interesting. So Blaine/Birch Bay actually had the biggest appreciation, 11.3%. But again, coming back to that concept that prices were significantly lower, people start looking outward and people start going, okay, well, I'm fine being 30 minutes from town. And so we saw that actually proportionately go up significantly more, but it's at a lower price point, if that makes sense. Linden next on the list at 6.4%, Ferndale at 5.6%, and Bellingham right behind at 5.5%. So Bellingham still is the most expensive place to live of all of those places, but also had the lowest appreciation, the slowest appreciation, because you're starting to hit these like upper barriers of affordability with rates the way they are. Okay, so kind of jumping into some, I'll leave these for if you'd like to read them, but we've hit since the Great Recession, there has not been this low number of median closed homes, like the amount of homes that have sold. So we're actually at levels of inventory. We're at about 1.3 months of inventory, meaning that if nothing else came on the market, it would take 1.3 months for all of the inventory to sell, which is still relatively hot, right? Because if a balanced market is 6 months, anything more than that is a buyer's market. Everything under that is a relative seller's market. We're at a pretty decently hot seller's market. Now, it's weird, kind of getting into the volatility of this market. That doesn't mean that everything that hits the market sells immediately. In fact, we're seeing a lot this year when people price like they priced during COVID, or they're not taking the time up front to prep their home and get it ready for sale and they invest some money and time and effort into getting it sold, or pricing it aggressively to accommodate those things. Buyers want done. They want a house that's done. Even if it's old, the houses that sell quickly are brand new, priced well, or have had everything done to them, or at least most done to them, or the price is enticing enough for the work to be, worthwhile to the buyer. But more than ever, people are looking at their interest rate and going, man, it's going to cost me a lot per month. I don't really want to spend additional money after I've already spent this money to buy this house. So pretty interesting to see, but that doesn't mean that the market is all hot. Just because those numbers are showing that, it just means that we've started seeing more volatility. Some houses that we think are going to sell immediately because they've done all the prep work, they've priced it well. Every little detail matters right now. Who you hire, the level of marketing that they do, the level of networking that they do, how you price it, how it shows, the work that's been done ahead of time. All those things matter. And then also timing. It can be one weekend where the same house sells immediately, and then the next weekend someone else lists another house that's the same, and it doesn't sell immediately. It takes 90 days. You just don't know. And we've experienced both of those. So So I think preparing yourself for the worst case scenario, but ultimately knowing that it's better, it is still a good time to list, but it's ultimately, and it is still a good time to buy. I'll get into that. But all of the little details matter right now. Who you hire, it's not just who you know, it's who you hire. It's how well they understand the market. It's also being willing to adjust if things don't go perfectly right off the bat. Give it your maximum effort, get it out to everybody, stay in front of everybody, keep doing open houses, keep doing all those things, but not having the expectation that if it doesn't sell in the first weekend that it's the end of the world. So shifting to this year, I don't expect a whole lot this year that's going to be different. I kind of see rates just hanging out in the same place. We're not seeing a lot of downward movement with rates, but I do see a great opportunity on the buying side and also on the selling side. I'm not trying to just play both sides of the field here, but as a seller, if you don't need to sell your house today, but you're thinking about selling your house, the next 3 months are a great time to start working on those projects or contact your real estate agent and start getting a checklist of some things that you can do to get your house ready for what I believe to be the best time to sell your house, which is right around March, April, May and June and July start to get into the thick of summer where you start to get a little bit more crowding of inventory, homes for sale, more competition. But on the buyer side, I think that the next 3 months are probably, if there's houses on the market, which we know that the inventory is relatively low coming off of the fall and winter, I couldn't think of a better time to buy. And the reason I say that is not because of interest rates. You're probably going, what about interest rates? The cost of living sucks. Well, I agree. I agree that rates are high and monthly payments are high, but this is the best possible time to get a good deal before if rates if they slide down. If we start to see rates get closer to 6 or 5.5%, you want to be the person refinancing. You don't want to be the person in the market buying at that time. So kind of jumping into what I'm going to talk about a little bit later, we've got some great pieces here from two of our lender partners, Ian Mullen and Dylan Lange. But one of the things that's interesting that Ian talks about is if you're on the fence about buying and you're thinking maybe I should wait, but you have the ability to buy now, this is a window where I'm like, hey, if you have the ability to go buy and you're thinking about waiting because rates might come down, not only are homes going to continue to appreciate, so you're going to pay more for the house ultimately, but if rates come down, you're going to have more competition. So I really like that sentiment around, there's no timing the market. There's just good and bad variables with every market. All right, so we're going to jump into Whatcom County and some details of what happened this last year. So we talked about it, 2,272 closed sales this year. It's only 30 more, so it seems pretty similar to 2023. Do I expect something similar this next year? We're probably going to be around that same number. And median close price, 637. We already talked about that. Even with the transaction count down here, sold prices were at an annual highest in MLS history. So it shows that the close volume goes down, but ultimately the price continues to rise. And we're seeing we saw an 8% year over year appreciation from 2023 to 2024. And then also looking at 5%. So if you're one of those folks that bought your house 3, 4, 5 years ago, you've seen a huge increase in value, mainly due to COVID, but you're still seeing that happen post-COVID. So just encouraging, like the whole value of buying real estate is not to make money in 1 year, it's to see your asset grow in 3, 4, 5+ years. Days on market is all about absorption rate, right? So we talked about, months of inventory. Days on market is also really important to look at. If you're looking at selling your home and timing that well, you kind of have to build backwards, right? You kind of have to look at, hey, this is when I'd like to have my house closed. And right, you could be closing in the busier months, but you really want to time it so you're beating the busier months where you have less competition, buyers are re-entering the market, and ultimately you are closing when everybody else is starting to finally get it together and get their house in the market. It's not to say that listing in the summer is bad, but there's you list when you can, timing of a job change or a move or a downsize or an upsize or whatever it may be is not always perfect, but just kind of speaking to that. But median days on market is really important to look at. So if we're setting expectations, if your house is prepped well, it's priced well, you know it's going to be marketed well with us, then it should sell within 15 days. So if we're having a conversation the first weekend and it hasn't sold yet, and our median days on market in a specific location is 15 days, well, let's have another conversation at 15 days. But I think ultimately, a lot of the time, it just takes a little bit more time for the right buyer to see it. Expired and canceled, the reason that we bring this up is because most of the stats that are out there, median close price, all of the stats have a success bias, right? So they only show what worked. Expired and cancels show they're this secret sauce that we've started adding to our graphs here, because what it shows is that attempt and failure versus attempt and success, right? And sometimes people give it a shot, and then it doesn't sell, they pull it, relist it in the following spring. Sometimes it takes a few attempts at it. So I think just having that expectation. This is what it was like before the COVID market. Shifting over to Bellingham, I know we talked about the 952 sales, and that was more in 2024 than 2023. So there was a few more sales, a couple more sales per month than there were before. Obviously, the median close price are also at an annual highest. So you're seeing this trend of property values continue to go up. Whether it's not a perfect straight line, but it's this zigzag line that constantly trends up. So to get too caught up on what your Zillow or Redfin says every single month, I don't even look at mine that often. I look at maybe every 4 months. I'll see what happened if another house sold, see what happens, look at some comps. But if you're looking at the market every month, it's almost too often, right? We like to look at it because we like to see how every month stacks up, because we're really in the thick of the data. But you can't, if you're looking at a real estate investment for a 1, 2, 3, 5 year investment trajectory, you really should only, I would say, a minimum every quarter. I wouldn't get too caught up in it. Let's see, we talked about median days on market. It's lower than the average of Whatcom County. Cancel and expires are more prevalent than they were during COVID, obviously, because most everything that hit the market was selling. And when I say canceled and expireds, those are either contracts, listings that were canceled by the seller or the agent, or expired. They went their whole listing term and did not sell. It's super interesting to say that 23.7% of the total number of listings canceled or expired. So 1 in every 4 listings that came on the market didn't succeed. So if you're going on the market, if you want to hit that 75%, which is still a pretty decent success rate, you don't want to be the one that hits that 23.7%. And so this is why I keep harping back on taking the time to prep your home, get everything that needs to get done. Don't rush to get it on the market. Price it well. Make sure it shows well. It's just worth taking the time to do that. And you might say, well, I can't afford to do it. Well, that's okay. There's other solutions. There's lots of different ways to give people information so that they can at least ballpark what it's going to cost to get it there. Similar with Ferndale, I'm not going to go through that too much, or Linden, because we talked a little bit more about that. Blaine, Birch Bay, biggest note there is that the year-over-year appreciation is up 11%, which is cool to see that area grow. Talking a little bit more about, and I've talked to Dylan about this a lot, and I know that for those of you that have worked with him, really the rhetoric in his statement as well as Ian's statement is around, look, this is potentially one of the best times to buy from an equity perspective because you have the ability to negotiate. And there's a lot of people out there that are needing to sell before they buy. And I think just getting everything done ahead of time, whether it's getting pre-qualified, going through our contingency plan, which is our awesome plan that gets you all prepped, gets photos done, gets listing paperwork signed so you can go out and shop and we can list your house in the same day. I think getting pre-approved early and even pre-underwritten if you're a little bit ahead of the curve as far as when you're ready to buy, don't do it last minute. Do not do it last minute. And also, I'm not saying don't be patient, but don't necessarily, pass up on the first house. Sometimes it's the first house, sometimes it's the 10th house. Just get really clear with your agent on what it is that you want. You should not be out there looking at 10 homes a day. Honestly, if your agent has done a good job to get a good idea of what's most important to you, especially right now, there should not be more than, a few houses at any given time to go take a look at. I know I talked a little bit earlier on Ian's sentiment that was there's this people that are on the fence. There's this tipping point for people where something's got to be a screaming deal, and I'll just say that I agree with Ian in the sense that if you're on the fence and you're waiting, but you can buy and you want to be here, don't wait to do it. Well, that's enough chatter here, but I always want to just open this up for dialogue, and sometimes it comes up in a different conversation or people reach out directly to me, but I always want to create this resource that is data-driven, objective information that's not trying to necessarily motivate you to do something you don't want to do. It's ultimately just to say, here's what's happening, here's how you can handle this, and here's who you need on your team to ultimately do this at the highest level and be part of that 76.7%, whatever, 75% of the people that do have a success rate, do have success in selling or buying a house. And so, anyways, I hope you're all doing great. This is the 2024 market report, and I hope you're all doing great. Please reach out with any questions. I'm always more than happy to sit down over a coffee or a beverage or lunch and talk more about what's happening and hear about what your needs and wants are and what your fears are and what your potential misconceptions of real estate, of buying real estate, because it is still accessible. No matter what anybody says, it's still possible. We've had many first-time homebuyers this year buy their first house, take the leap into it. It's a little uncomfortable. It's more uncomfortable than it's been in past years, but have made it happen. And so we're hoping to just be that resource here for you, to feel comfortable talking about it and not feel like you have to do anything, but ultimately just get information. So happy 2024 and into 2025, and you'll see me again for the next quarterly update.